This is the Ohio Farm Bureau podcast. I'm Ty Higgins. As farmers plan for the upcoming growing season, many are facing hardships, financial strain caused by the recent drought. In an effort to lessen the burdens caused by those conditions, Ohio Treasurer Robert Sprague and his office offering some much-needed assistance for counties most impacted by the drought. Treasurer Sprague joins us on the podcast. Sir, welcome back. Good to see you again.
Hey, great to see you, Ty. Thanks for having me on.
This help is coming through your AgLINK program. To start, for those not familiar, what is AgLINK?
Well, it's a program that we've had in the Treasurer's office for the last 30 years that has helped farmers, particularly during difficult times like this. And essentially, the program is you just go to your local lending institution where you'd normally get a loan. You take out the loan, and then the Treasurer's office will put a deposit there for the same amount of money at that financial institution. We take a lower rate of interest on the CD, the certificate of deposit that we get back from the bank, and then they pass on that reduced rate of interest to you as a farmer in the form of lower loan costs or lower interest rate on your loan. So it's a great program. It's saved farmers tens of millions of dollars over the years here in the state of Ohio. It's proven, and we're pleased to be able to roll out a special drought window to our otherwise enormously successful AgLINK program.
Yeah, you mentioned some enhancements, as we'll call them in 2025. AgLINK for some parts of Ohio are going to look a little different. What does that look like for those farmers still reeling from the losses due to the drought?
Well, we know it's been really tough on those farmers and those communities during the drought, particularly those that have animals that want to forage for food. And so we're trying to do something special in the AgLINK program in the Treasurer's office, and we're opening up this window in January. From January to April, we're going to open up a special window for these severe drought designated counties in the state of Ohio. And so if you're a farmer and you're an agribusiness in those counties, you're going to qualify during that window of time for a unique enhanced benefit. And the enhanced benefit is going to be up to $750,000 loan. Normally it's only $500,000, so an additional 700 or up to, a total of $750,000. An enhanced interest rate reduction, so up to 3%. Normally it's less than that, so up to 3% deduction on the interest rate on that loan from the Treasurer's office. And then the final piece is normally, Ty, we only do it for a year, the AgLINK program, and this is for a 2-year period, so you have longer time to pay back that loan. You get that reduced rate of interest for a longer period of time. So all of those things we're trying to open up because we know that farmers have really been hurt by the drought.
Important to point out, for those not impacted by the drought, there were some parts of the state that didn't see quite what the southern and the eastern parts of Ohio saw, parts of Northwest Ohio struggling as well. What does AgLINK look like compared to 2024 and 2025 for those that weren't impacted by the drought?
I mean, AgLINK's going to be the same. It still continues to set records. And I mean, why is that? It's because the interest rate environment is so high. And so this reduction in the interest rate really helps farmers now. I can remember when we went to the General Assembly and we asked for more flexibility and to raise the caps and things for farmers. And some of the response was, well, the interest rates are at zero now. And we said, well, the interest rates are not always going to be at zero, and we need to prepare for the future, and the future is here. And so with the higher interest rate environment, a lot of farmers are now taking advantage of our AgLINK program. We saved over $18 million for farmers just last year, set a new record for AgLINK. And quite frankly, it's one of the best programs in the United States of America. And so we're very pleased to be able to roll it out to Ohio farmers. And this special drought window, I think I said it before, but the drought window is going to be open from January through the end of April.
And how can those taking in this podcast find out more about getting involved in the AgLINK program, whether they're in those drought impacted areas or not?
You just go to our website and you can find out more. It's www.ohiotreasurer.gov. And you can check out the AgLINK piece on our website. It's there on the splash page. It's really easy to get to. And by the way, you fill out all the paper with the local lending institution, and then behind the scenes, they do some paperwork with the Treasurer's office. So it's pretty easy for you as a farmer or as an agribusiness.
We'll put that link in the description of this podcast. You'll find it online at ohiofarmbureau.org. Ohio Treasurer Robert Sprague joining us on the podcast. Thanks as always, sir.
I appreciate you helping us get the word out to Ohio farmers, because we know a lot of people have been impacted in these drought counties, and I've heard from a lot of them personally and talked to them. And we really appreciate you helping us get the word out about this program, because we want to try to help where we can.
Hey, this is Matt, Phil, and Libby, hosts of Ag Credit Set It, your go-to podcast for insights on farm finance and maximizing your return on investment.
Tune in to new episodes of Ag Credit Set It twice a month as we talk to industry leaders, financial experts, and farmers who share their experiences and perspective.
Listen in your favorite podcast app like Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and be sure to subscribe to Ag Credit Set It so you never miss an episode. We'll talk to you soon.
As the nation's #1 insurer of farms and farm families, Nationwide has long been a reliable resource for rural America. And while the current surge of data, technology, and globalization promises incredible growth potential, each new opportunity is shadowed by rising threats like security breaches, GMO contamination, and supply chain failures. This business is about adapting. It demands a protector just as forward-minded. It demands Nationwide.
This is the Ohio Farm Bureau podcast. We're at the 2024 Ohio State Ag Policy and Outlook Conference, and a lot of important topics going on here on campus today. Dr. Brent Sohngen joins us, focusing on a lot of different aspects of trends that might impact agriculture in 2025 and beyond. And your focus, of course, Dr. Sohngen, is energy. That space has become much more complex over the past couple of years, hasn't it?
It has indeed. It just keeps changing. It seems like every year when we come and do the same meeting, there's something new going on in the energy sector.
What kind of trends are you looking for? Energy is, as we talked about, complex. That means there's a wider variety of things to look at. What are some of the things you focus on when you talk to farmers here in the audience today?
Yeah, one thing that to focus on that's really important is the sort of international factors. We've never gotten away from those. That the oil sector, petroleum, distillates, diesel fuel. These things are all affected by international factors. You can't escape that in the market. And so, what happens in China matters to what happens in the U.S. and the fact that China, their growth is slowing down a little bit, and that's having an impact on oil prices. You can see it. They've stayed low, right? And OPEC is doing everything it can to try to push them back up, but is having no success. And some of that's also then a testament to technology. That's a second factor to look at, right? We've in the U.S., enjoyed this amazing technological boom with fracking in the last 20 years, where we've been able to extract oil at rates, that we never could have imagined 25, 35 years ago. In fact, if we go back into the early 2000s and the worry about, you heard people talking about peak oil, like all over the place back then. And what they were worried about was we were going to run out. And it turns out that we weren't going to run out. We were never going to run out. And if peak oil is an issue, it's because we're demanding less, right? So, I don't know, these factors keep changing. International in the petroleum sector. When you go into the electricity sector, then you start talking about natural gas. And that's something we have an abundance of here in Ohio. We produce a lot of it in the eastern part of the state, out in Pennsylvania, West Virginia as well. This is really the biggest natural gas region in the U.S. now. It used to be down in Louisiana and the southern coast. It's here now. So we see some pretty amazing changes, and that affects our electricity sector, right? We go low natural gas prices. That means the input to electricity production is less costly, and so electricity prices are remaining low. So we get, we're enjoying some benefits out of that.
You did break it up, and Ohio has some stark differences compared to the rest of the country. I do want to take, though, another dive into agriculture, energy use on the farm. How are we seeing that changing? Is it getting a little bit more sustainable as we see these technologies come online?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, so, agricultural machinery is not unlike other machinery. And I'm sure farmers see this more, they're right at the pinpoint of that technology is making each farm machine more productive than the last farm machine. Like whether you can cut more rows with the same tractor or the tractor is just more efficient. These technological efficiency gains, they're just blowing up in our economy. And it's fun to watch, right? Because all of a sudden, you're facing, tough margins out there with prices being low and labor costs being high and all these other factors affecting you. And if you can get a little more out of your machine, wow, that's a benefit, right? So that's a big thing. And as we see, distillate prices sort of remain hopefully low, come back down. They have come back down in the last year or so relative to where they were. Hopefully we can see that keep happening. It should happen. There are some things in the refining sector that could influence that, but we hope that those factors sort of play out and come out to the benefit of farmers. I think they will. That's sort of my prediction, but that's a tougher one than the other sort of petroleum markets. But these energy on the farm is interesting. The one thing to watch out for, I think, is natural gas, right? So if you're next year, as you start to think about the drying season and having to take some of your crops and dry them, if you're using natural gas, I do worry about that one. I think there's going to be a big push on natural gas electricity production in the next few years, and we're going to see some strengthening in natural gas markets. That's my guess. We'll see if it comes to pass, but that sort of seems to be, we're at a low part. We're at historical lows on natural gas in the U.S. That's another one where we couldn't have predicted that we would be there, 25 and 30 years ago, but here we are. I don't know how they can go any lower, so look for some strengthening on that one.
I want to go from energy use on the farm to using farms for energy. You mentioned the word solar in there, so I'm going to ask you about it because you talked about how what we're seeing now in Columbus and in front of the decision makers about future solar is maybe all we're going to see for the foreseeable future. Can you talk about that a little bit and why we're seeing this stopgap as far as solar growth here in Ohio?
So, Ohio's had some legislative changes, and the legislative changes in the last few years have given strength to local communities to sort of make decisions maybe more consistent with what local decision makers want about how land is used. And so that is having a bit of a chilling effect on new announcements of new solar in the state. So we have a bunch of solar that's already been announced, and it's already under some element of the permitting process. And most of that stuff, if it doesn't get approved, it's not going forward. But should it all get approved, that's about the extent of what we're going to see. You don't hear a lot about new sort of ideas or investments and new places sort of considering, or new companies coming in and saying we want to go and invest more in solar in the state. So there's a chilling effect on that in terms of new investments. So it looks like in terms of renewables in Ohio, we're going to sort of hit a max of maybe 10 to 12% in our state of our electricity will be produced with either wind or solar. It's a sizable increase from where we are today, still 6 to 7% increase, which is a 100% increase over where we are right now. So it's a big increase from today, but that would be kind of the cap out of it probably, based on where we are right now with sort of the legislative pushes. Now there is some discussion of some proposals to try to improve community-based solar, so smaller scale solar systems, and there are a lot of them out there actually, that don't need the Ohio Power Siting Board approval, right? And so we could see more of that starting to happen because the technologies are nearly the same. I mean, utility scale solar is maybe 10%, 20% cheaper than that because of the economies of scale they can get out of the purchasing power they have. But nonetheless, community-based solar is a cheap option for communities or even individual farmers to get low-cost electricity on their farms. So I expect to see a growth in that in the next couple of years. It won't be the scale of the utility scale stuff, but it'll still be, hopefully helpful to farmers, in fact, actually, because electricity, you can't find a cheaper source of electricity, especially when natural gas prices start to go up. So I think that solar's here to stay. It just we won't see much of an expansion of the utility scale stuff beyond where we're likely to get in the next couple of years. We're not going to see much beyond that.
Final question about the outlook. We have seen net farm income decrease by 30% over the last 2 years. Unfortunately, here in Ohio, crop production has decreased at the same time that market prices are at lows we haven't seen in 50 years or more. Energy is a major component of the bottom line on the farm. Where do you see energy prices going? Mostly concerned about diesel, of course, oil and gas. We're enjoying now some of the lower prices we've seen over the past 5 years. Will we see that continue in the next few years to come?
Yeah, I do think that motor gasoline is going to remain relatively low. We could get back up into the 325 range, but that's about the max I could see it in the next year. I think in the next 6 months it's going to keep going down. Distillates is a sort of a different issue because I think distillates, diesel, are heavily demanded by the transportation sector and heavily demanded in the sort of industrial sector in the U.S. And that sector's really been hitting the chin in the last couple of years. So we see some bounce back in that. I mean, all the economic projections that I see from the Fed and other places suggest that we'll see better growth in the industrial sector in the next year to two. That's going to firm up distillate prices. So we just don't have the refining capacity here for big expansion. So as we see transportation pick back up, and sort of big, trucks moving across the highways. I know everyone thinks it's big already, but it could go bigger. I think we'll see some firming up on that. So that's one to watch. I think that, that one, the diesel that's not gonna go away as an issue for farmers.
Find previous podcasts at ohiofarmbureau.org and search podcasts.